the FBI starts sniffing around, starts digging around, starts flipping through pages, looking into the WNBA.
Look, we've all seen some questionable officiating this season, right?
What really got this
the kind where everyone watching goes, hold on, how is that not a foul? Well, now there's finally an explanation. Referees have come forward and testified under oath that the league was influencing how certain games were called, and the direction, according to them, came from Cathy Engelbert's office. And the player caught in the middle of it? Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest draw, the rookie bringing in record crowds, the one introducing millions of new fans to the WNBA, but somehow she's the one taking the hardest hits with no protection. And here's where it gets even bigger. After those NBA gambling arrests, Stephen A. Smith said it flat out. If the FBI is looking into the NBA, don't be shocked if they look at the WNBA next.
Why am I glad you're here, Monica? Because don't be surprised if the WNBA is next on his list.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't be surprised if the WNBA is next on his list. Yep. Don't be surprised.
So this isn't just bad officiating anymore. This could be the start of something much larger. Let's talk about what's going on. When the news first came out, it didn't feel like a leak. It felt like a detonation. 3 referees, each with years of experience in the league, stepped forward and delivered sworn statements pointing upward, not at players, not at coaches, but directly at Cathy Engelbert's leadership office. They described meetings, expectations, and subtle nudges that weren't subtle at all. Not call the game fairly, not protect the athletes, but make sure the league looks competitive. One of the referees reportedly said something that has now become the center of the debate. Too much attention on one player disrupts the league's image. Everyone knows who that refers to. This wasn't a frustrated comment after a tough game. This was testimony. Statements delivered calmly, professionally, and under the weight of legal consequence. And because these words were given under oath, the investigation is taking them seriously. This puts the WNBA in a position it has never faced before. Not criticism, not fan backlash, but a legitimacy crisis. The league has been working hard to grow, expand, and bring in new audiences, and Caitlin Clark was the engine driving that growth. So why would the league even consider holding her back? The referees say it wasn't personal, it was strategic. But strategy, when used to manipulate the outcome of competition, is not leadership. It's interference. And now, the investigation is only deepening. The phrase that keeps echoing from the referee statements is this one: protect the league image. Not protect players, not protect fairness, protect the image. The WNBA has worked for decades to build competitive balance. They don't want one team dominating the league. They don't want one superstar redefining the entire conversation overnight. They want slow, controlled, predictable growth. But basketball has never worked that way. Growth doesn't happen by controlling greatness. It happens by embracing it. So when Caitlin Clark arrived, someone who naturally drew attention to the league without marketing campaigns, without forced narratives, without staged messaging, leadership panicked because they could no longer control the direction. A natural star disrupts structure. A phenomenon doesn't wait for permission. So instead of celebrating her impact, the league allegedly tried to manage it, contain it, balance it, blend it into the background. This wasn't done by criticizing her publicly. It was done quietly through officiating guidelines. A few fewer whistles, a bit more physicality permitted, a message sent without needing to say it out loud. Don't let her stand too far above everyone else. But that approach doesn't just limit a player. It compromises the credibility of the league itself. Caitlin Clark didn't just enter the WNBA, she shifted the atmosphere. Before her arrival, games were steady, respectable crowds, loyal fans, modest attention. But the moment she stepped onto a WNBA court, everything changed. Arenas were selling out. Tickets that used to cost $15 were suddenly going for hundreds. People who had never watched women's basketball were tuning in night after night. She was electric. She was exciting. She was the kind of talent leagues dream about. But not everyone celebrated her impact. Some veteran players felt overshadowed. Some coaches didn't appreciate the sudden shift in narrative. And leadership, according to the referee statements, felt threatened by how quickly the balance of attention changed. Caitlin Clark didn't climb the ladder the traditional way. She rocketed past it, and that's what made her different. Instead of positioning the league alongside her momentum, Engelbert allegedly tried to slow her down so the league could catch up. But greatness doesn't wait for permission. Caitlin never complained publicly. She never played the victim. She kept her head down, she worked, she competed, she supported her teammates, she did everything right. And that calm response, that professionalism, is exactly what makes this situation hit even harder. Because the one person handling this with grace is the one who paid the highest price. Anyone watching Caitlin Clark's games could feel that something was off. The hits she took weren't normal defensive bumps. They were full-body collisions, forearm drives, hip checks, shoves off the ball. Physicality is part of basketball, but this wasn't physicality. This was permission. The referees now say they were told to let it play when it came to guarding Clark, to allow more contact on her drives, to avoid slowing the game down with whistles. But those instructions weren't applied evenly across the league. Only she played under those conditions. And that's where everything changes. Because if there is one rule that every athlete trusts when stepping onto the court, it's this: the officials will keep the game safe. But when that trust is broken, everything is at risk: careers, health, the integrity of the sport. Meanwhile, Cathy Engelbert sat courtside, smiling, appearing calm, confident, and unbothered, as if none of this was happening in front of her. The message was clear, even if it was never spoken. She'll be fine. The league needs balance more than it needs protection. But the league doesn't grow when it suppresses its brightest talent. The league grows when it protects them. Parity sounds beautiful on paper. Every team has a chance. Every game feels competitive. Every fan feels hopeful. But parity is supposed to develop on its own, through drafting, coaching, player development, and internal culture. It is not supposed to be engineered through officiating influence. The referees say the quiet part out loud. The league didn't want a runaway superstar to dominate headlines. They didn't want one franchise becoming the center of the league identity. They didn't want the WNBA to feel like it revolved around one player. But sometimes it does. The NBA had Jordan. The NFL had Brady. Tennis had Serena. Soccer had Messi. When a sport has a generational talent, the league lifts them because they lift the entire game. But instead of supporting Clark's rise, Engelbert allegedly tried to dilute it, to spread out attention, to keep the league balanced even when the product on the court wasn't. Greatness isn't always fair. Greatness changes things. Real fans love that. But if the league really did interfere to keep things artificially even, then what we were watching wasn't just basketball, it was presentation. And now that the curtain has been pulled, the league can't hide behind image anymore. What began as quiet frustration among fans and analysts has now turned into a full-scale inquiry. The testimonies from the referees didn't sit in a file somewhere. They were escalated, reviewed, cross-checked, and taken seriously by investigators who specialize in organizational ethics. This is no longer about missed calls during a few intense games. This is about whether the league's leadership influenced outcomes that should have been decided only by players on the court. That is the kind of accusation that reaches far beyond basketball. Investigators are now examining several key points. Did league officials directly communicate expectations to referees? Were referees advised to allow extra physicality toward Caitlin Clark specifically? Were certain teams or players favored to maintain an image of competitive balance? And most importantly, who approved these directives? Because someone did. One thing investigators always look for is pattern. And if they find consistent referee accounts, consistent officiating trends, or internal communication that matches these testimonies, then Engelbert's leadership isn't just in question, it could be legally compromised. And if that happens, this doesn't end with public backlash. It ends with structural change, leadership change, officiating overhaul, possibly even the rewriting of league policy. This isn't the kind of situation that fades away in a week. This is the kind that reshapes the league's future. And the timing of this investigation becomes even more critical when you look at what's happening in the rest of the basketball world. The WNBA's situation isn't happening in isolation. The basketball world is already under a microscope. The NBA has been dealing with gambling-related scandals, player investigations, and questions about whether certain outcomes were influenced by off-court factors. When one league faces integrity issues, every league gets examined. That's how oversight works. So now, when investigators see questionable officiating in WNBA games, sworn testimony describing game management from above, and a sudden surge in public scrutiny, they don't treat it as a coincidence. They treat it as a potential pattern. This is no longer just a WNBA image issue. It is a basketball image issue. And protecting the identity of the sport is bigger than protecting any individual commissioner. Here's the irony. Cathy Engelbert positioned herself as the stabilizer, the one who brought structure, marketing growth, corporate partnerships, and new visibility to the WNBA. And yes, she did expand the league financially. But if that stability was achieved by quietly shaping the product on the floor, then it wasn't stability. It was control. And that difference matters. Because leagues don't earn trust through advertising or speeches. They earn trust through fair play. And right now, that trust is on the line. When Stephen A. Smith addresses something on national platforms, the conversation changes scale. It moves from basketball debates to national discussion. And when he mentioned that no league is insulated from integrity challenges, including the WNBA, he made something very clear.
Why am I glad you're here, Monica? Because don't be surprised if the WNBA is next on his list.
This situation is now bigger than internal league conversations. Whether Stephen A. meant to or not, he connected the dots for millions of people watching. He said in plain terms that when sports leagues allow anything that even resembles manipulated outcomes, investigations eventually come knocking. And this time, they may already be opening the door. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark continues to stay composed. No complaints, no accusations, no dramatic interviews. She just plays. And that contrast speaks loudly. While the league scrambles for messaging, crisis control, and quiet meetings, Caitlin Clark lets her game speak for her, and fans new and long-time see that. Her calm exposes the chaos around her. That is why the pressure does not fall on Clark at all. It falls on Engelbert, because one of them is leading through grace, and the other is trying to manage perception. Only one of those approaches withstands the truth. Now we arrive at the moment everyone is revisiting, the 2024 WNBA Finals, Minnesota Lynx versus New York Liberty. On the surface, it looked like a tough, competitive series. But when you rewatch the key possessions, slow the tape, study the officiating, some things become difficult to ignore. Clean blocks called as fouls. Obvious contact ruled as incidental. Momentum swings shaped not by execution, but by whistles. This didn't look like a game flowing naturally. It looked influenced. And then there's the visual that fans still mention. Cathy Engelbert courtside in a New York skyline dress during the finals. Not neutral, not discreet, not appropriate for a commissioner claiming impartial leadership. A commissioner should never appear aligned with a team. Not in symbolism, not in messaging, not in appearance. But Engelbert did. And now that referee testimony suggests leadership may have influenced officiating, that dress isn't just a questionable wardrobe choice. It becomes context. And context changes meaning. If investigators review that final series in light of referee testimony, it could become the central example of how Engelbert tried to shape the league's competitive image. Because when narrative is prioritized over fairness, the product stops being competition. It becomes presentation. Now the WNBA faces a turning point that will define it for decades, because this is no longer about one player, no longer about one series, no longer about one commissioner. This is about trust. Do fans trust that what they're watching is real competition? Do players trust that they are protected when they step onto the court? Do coaches trust that outcomes are determined by execution, not influence? If the answer becomes no, the league has a crisis at its core. So what happens next? If the investigation confirms these referee statements, Engelbert will likely face removal or forced resignation. The officiating system will need to be rebuilt from the ground up. Transparency will have to become a requirement, not a slogan. And the league will need to embrace, not suppress, the players who elevate it. And here's the part that matters most. Caitlin Clark never asked for any of this. She didn't demand special treatment. She didn't complain. She didn't blame anyone. She just played. And the league should have protected her, not used her as a balancing piece. So now the question is for the fans, the players, and the league itself. Should Cathy Engelbert remain in power? Or is it time for leadership that protects the game instead of controlling the image of it? If you believe fairness matters, then the answer is already clear. The league doesn't need silence. It needs accountability. And accountability begins now.